just to let everyone who is watching this live or watching the playback, I am the luckiest person today because I am sharing space with oil painter Diana, also known as Wonder Woman in my realm. So, and this is casual to where we're going to get to know a little bit more about the amazing person known as Diana or oil painter.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how to, I'm blushing.
Well,
I'd be doing a curtsy if I were standing.
I would also be doing a curtsy. I think the curtsy is nicer than the bow.
Yeah, I'll take your hand.
There you go. There you go. Oh, wait a minute. Here, let me.
There you go.
Here, take my tiny hand. We'll do it that way. There you go.
Ooh. Oh, I got lost in the camera. There I am.
Oh, that's okay.
Because on StreamYard, it's reversed for me.
Yes, it is for me as well. And so, anyhow.
Yeah, like, where am I? This is now, yeah. It's like talking about virtual reality.
Yes, very, very true. So, thank you very much for being here. I'm thrilled. This is the second time I've had you on my show.
Yeah.
Oh, and okay, so there you go. I mean,
mine won't work on StreamYard.
It should. It should. It's just with your camera. Anyhow.
Yeah.
So, but the first time was with Angela, Deb, you, and me, and we were talking about car magic.
Yes.
Stuff to put in your car and magic in your car. And by the way, that is linked below because I want you to be able to see all things Diana. I was talking backstage. Diana has agreed to be part of an upcoming series on my show. They are going to, on my channel, they're going to be pre-recorded shows. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
There you go.
So,
I left mine in the other room.
Uh-oh. Well, and I do have to say thank you very much for participating in last year's Glimmer Globe.
Oh, I loved it, and I'm hoping they're going to do it again. I'm a big knot tire. I love that ritual.
Yes. So we are, and speaking of knots, Angela Cardamancy Mesquite, her birthday was yesterday.
Happy yes.
Birthday, Angela. And Sherry is hosting a birthday live for her, I think on Friday or Saturday. And they're talking about knot magic. So,
yep.
So this has been great. So, all right, let's say hi to some people in chat, shall we? And by the way, everybody, please remember to like and subscribe. It's free. Both Diana and I do private readings. Links and contact information is below. So,
thank you.
Hershey, the shadow reader, is here.
Hello, Hershey.
And Kaylee Fogo Pogo.
Kaylee, awesome to see you.
And by the way, Kaylee, Diana's email is in the description below. You might want to reach out to her. She could be a good person to have on your channel. Just saying.
Curtsy again. Thank you.
I'm always working. The amazing Viviani is here. And you, Viviani, and Linda De Gonzalez do the Akashic Adventures regularly on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
So
adjust for your time.
Yep. Mods, please watch this one. Tarot Stash, have no idea who that person is.
And I forgot my phone, so I can't talk. So let me text. So let me just say, hello, tribal dancers. Good to see you all.
There you go. And Mary Al's Perfect Health is here. Hello. Art Mancy is here. Hello, Art Mancy. Thank you. And yeah, let's get this party started. Definitely.
There you go.
And so, yes, we love Diana. Yes, we do. And I get to share her with everybody who watches. Plucky Heroine has joined us. Hello, Plucky. Pointing out the best chatters. Yes. And Liz and Awe. Yay, Diana.
Hey, Liz.
So this is wonderful. Yes, I did win the lottery with Diana. And part of it is I'm trying to go, what are we going to talk about? Because one of the questions is I want to know her origin story. There may have to be a part two and your divination tools, because you do a lot, which is part of what makes you so wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
yeah. How far back do you want me to go? To the womb or?
Yes. And so, okay. And been looking forward to this today.
Oh, thank you.
Jen Bowles is here. Hello. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
we have this name in common, spelled differently, but name in common.
Mm-hmm. And Jenny Berlin has joined us. So thank you for being here, Jenny. She's an amazing astrologer, Nalani says.
Thank you, Hypnicity. And how did the lunch go?
Lalima. Sorry. No, that's Nalani, right? Sorry.
Nalani.
I had and by the way, she was on for a casual and she survived.
Yeah, and I missed the show. I should go back and watch it.
Well, and I have forced myself upon her. I told her that I would be happy to be a guest.
There you go. She's ready, leaping out the door.
There you go. So, okay. So, as always, this is for entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance, really. And believe it or not, I do have some banners because some people might say that I am an overachiever. But let's start with that. What's your origin story? What do you want to tell us?
Well, my family history. When people would call me a princess, it's true. It's really true. I'm descendant of the last king of Poland. So there was always this air of.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
King Poniatowski. I'm not making it up.
They're the last descendant of the king of Poland.
The last king of Poland.
The last king of Poland.
Augustus Poniatowski, Augustus Joseph Poniatowski. And he broke up this huge country into 3 countries. It was no longer Pomerania. It was Lithuania, Czechoslovakia. I can't even tell you what all 3 of them were because the names changed so many times. Of
course, right? Yes.
So, but he was also a paramour of the Tsarina. Okay. Now, depending on whose version of that you want to read, the Polish version says they had 3 children together and none of them lived to ever see the throne because, of course, the hanky-panky play behind the scenes. But part of his reasoning of breaking this country up was to turn it into a democracy. And he stepped down from the throne and made Poland a democracy. And he started higher education and universities in Poland, made it available to all walks of life, not just the good old boys. And in so doing all of these things, he goes down in history. He abdicated in 1756, something like that. So it was, like the end. And a new beginning for Europe was based on that at that point in time. Okay. So that was also, before Napoleon, and then his great nephew or his nephew died in battle with Napoleon. And Napoleon said of his nephew, "There rides the best general I've ever seen." Okay. So there's that. Well, then I had a Victorian grandmother, so we continued on being princesses no matter what. Okay, so so it's okay for me to refer to you as Wonder Woman. Yes. Because in my mind, Wonder Woman has that great crown. So thank you. And there's a story with that too in the Catholic Church, cradle Catholic, just like you. Saint Diana and her sister, their feast day is June 9th. They were martyred in 400 something because they didn't want to lose their virginity. And I'm born on June 9th. Now, my mother was also born in 1927, and she was part of this whole Wonder Woman comic book phase.
Ah.
Okay. So, of course, my generation of girls, Diana was very popular. I got the name, but my mom did her research because my mom was a tarot card reader right from the start.
Okay. Wow. Okay. This is fascinating. And by the way, that card that Diana showed, we will show a little bit later. Don't worry. We've got the whole deck to share. I do want to say hello to more people who have come in.
Sure.
And Lottie B is here. Beth, Aspasia Rising, Linda Kennedy, Karen Johnson, and I've probably missed somebody. I think Millie is here. Good to see you. I think it's Joshua. You go by Joshua, not Josh, but Mr. Floyd Channeling. Good to see you. Standing in light with Annie Bear. Thank you, Annie Bear, for being here. I'm just, look at me. I'm having a fan moment here.
It's quite all right.
And so it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you. And look, Brian, Blushing Nerd Tarot.
I like that.
So there you go.
I like his icon there too.
Yes, such a nice guy. And so yeah. And Andrea Galvin is here. Hello.
Andrea, Diana herself. She's my fellow Detroiter there.
Yeah. And Linda Kennedy can't greet everybody, but that's okay. So
doing it for you.
There you go. And so let's talk about where you are right now. And what are the things from your past that give you the support and them, because ancestors, I would say, seem to be fairly important for you.
Yes.
What did the ancestors give you that make you the amazing person that you are?
Thank you. Well, they talk to me. So they push me when I'm going in the wrong direction. It's not always just my guardian angels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the witch in me is based on the old world ways, and the old world ways are do it for yourself. You got a boo-boo, you got to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the doctor didn't have a place down the street.
Yes.
And with my family's history of, being wealthy and then becoming paupers, you had to resort on the old world ways.
Sure.
And even the aristocracy believed in that. They just had a practitioner for them,
And I have to say, there's nothing wrong with having a practitioner, because exactly. I think part of what it is some people are able to do it, and they can do it. Some people are unable to do it for whatever reason, yet they recognize it when someone has the skills, and so they are willing to have that exchange, and they honor that. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. I think, let's get Gerald on his little soapbox. I think we're missing that. We're missing some of that honoring of the beauty and the skill set that people have and bring forward with them.
Exactly. I mean, when this all falls apart, this illusion that we live in, you better know how.
Mm-hmm.
You better know what plants can work in your favor, what ones you can eat and what ones you can't eat. And not just because you go on a psilocybin trip by mistake, you've got to know what, otherwise disease can get into you just from that.
Yes. So true. So true. So then part of your origin story is you've learned these things from your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Were you gifted with the ability to have your grandmother or your great grandmother with you?
Both.
Oh, that's a powerful thing.
My grandmother lived to be 102. Her mother lived to be 98, 99. And my mother, unfortunately, died young by the standard because she had been taken ill with MRSA and could never get over it. And
Mm-hmm.
it wiped her out by the time she was 84.
Wow. Wow.
Otherwise, we'd still be dancing.
There you go. There you go.
And that's the other thing is dance, dance, dance. That kept everybody alive. Music in the life. There wasn't a radio. It had all been invented in my grandmother and grandfather's generation. My great grandmother was alive to see all of that. So when I think of my grandmother almost making it to 3 centuries, living in 3 different centuries, she went from pot-bellied stove and fireplace to central air and a thermostat to regulate everything. She went from no phone, a piece of mail that took a week to go one state down to Ohio to say hello, right?
Yeah.
And if you were still in Europe, like my great grandparents were, it took a month before you could, and then to get an answer, there was no answer. So she went from the Pony Express to telephones to computers before she died.
I love that.
You know,
I love that.
she was a Marcella Wave girl. She was a beautician, and then she became a phone operator, and she continued to say "nyan, nyan, nyan."
We have more people who are joining us, so I want to thank everybody for being here. Ways to support the channels are listed below. And Annie Bear said, Diana is so dedicated to her gifts, her path. We are so fortunate to know her. Yes, well said. And she has more wisdom in her pinky than I have in my whole body.
I
Well,
don't know about that, Annie.
I might push back on that gently, Annie Bear, because you've got a lot of wisdom in your body. So yes,
Exactly.
so and more.
She's a little petite thing, so she's only as big as my pinky anyway.
So yeah, dance your days away. Yes,
You bet.
Yep, Jane the Seeker is here, and so beautiful. Wiki has joined us. So
yay, Wiki.
And Jane the Seeker is just stopping by before taking her 90-year-old grandma to mahjong.
Oh, yay. I love that, Jane.
Yep. So, and yeah. And so there you go. And Miss Charlotte is here. So, okay. So we were talking a little bit about your origin story, but tell us about your spiritual path. Tell us about your spirituality.
Okay. It definitely happened because I was raised with religion. I was a cradle Catholic, but I'm in that stage where we say recovering Catholic. I can't let go of the traditions. It was never about the religion. It was always about the faith and the stories and the ritual, which already magnified with everything else, not just the church's rituals, but the way my grandparents and great grandparents did everything anyway.
Yes.
Everything had to be a ritual in order to keep things clean, in order to keep the bugs out, in order to keep the mice out of the flour. Because my great grandparents had a breakfast bar. So the creamery, Seal Test Creamery, was right next door, horse-drawn days. In my lifetime, in my childhood, those horses were still there. And they would still go through the neighborhood delivering milk with the horse carriages. And at night, it's just on an outdoor conveyor belt. We'd go and take the leftovers off of the conveyor belt, chocolate milk. go down to the window where they're making homemade potato chips out the window, and you get the hot chips and the cold chocolate milk, and you sit down on the curb underneath the street light. Yeah, have that feast. Yes. So all of that was part of the fun and playing tag under the street light. Who cared what part of town it was? And that's downtown Detroit back in the day.
Yes. Yes.
So there was always a ritual, and my love of the church came in the Latin Mass and the rituals surrounding it. And at one point, I had strong enough faith that I wanted to be a cloistered nun. But, they really meant none of this and none of that. So
yes.
There was a parting of the ways, because then I started to understand religion. And by then I'm 16, 17 years old, and Vietnam's going on, and I'm carrying signs, and the two things weren't mixing, because I wasn't about to give up that, my little protest days.
You protested? What? Really?
Shut my mouth. Yeah. For that in Ohio. I was supposed to be there that day. I was supposed to go down to Kent that day.
Wow.
Because it's not that far from Detroit.
So it feels very much like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it feels very much like you grew up in a family that was worked together. It was close to the source of origin for your food, and that the religion and the ritual was part of everyday life. It wasn't anything special. It just was.
It just was. It was bake the bread, Busha with her punchkis. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Nobody makes them like that. Now they're just jelly donuts,
Yeah. And nothing a little about a protest. Absolutely.
No.
And
especially since, that was something different, not heard of in how many generations,
Yeah.
And then I was, of course, the riots of 67, 68 in Detroit with National Guard in the backyard. So all of that led me into that, sticking with that, having faith in thread pulling, in prayer, no matter whose prayer it was. Like I still say the 500-year-old prayer to St. Joseph, because he's one of my guides. That, that one doesn't go away. So a lot of the others have melted, but I can pull them up in my memory when I need them.
Of course.
So that's just ritual. The rosary, I said more rosaries when I was riding Harley than I ever did when I was in church.
Well, and that's the beauty of something like that. Prayers are not limited to just one religion. Prayers are for people who want to use them, and they're meaningful.
Yeah.
I am a person who I pick and choose, because, and I follow what makes me interested. I have a lot of different life experiences.
Right.
And I think this is an encouraging thing. So I did see Linda De Gonzalez here, more people. Annie Bear, we are on a walk with Annie right now. So they've got their earbuds in. So looking at the ferry. So I appreciate everyone being here.
Right.
So
well, and I think some of what I became aware of the church saying God will give you that answer when you die if he thinks you should know it. That's not an answer. That's what the nuns would say. So there was that. And then I began to question, well, what about the Lutheran guy? What about the Baptist guy? What about the Hebrew guy? What about Muhammad? Because I started exploring all these other religions. And it's a what do you mean they don't have the right to go to heaven? Who are you people?
Yes.
Of course, by then, this is high school, and I'm being taught by Felician nuns. And Felician nuns are Polish speaking nuns. They're the only ones who ever said my dad's last name correctly.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah. And I love, we're having great chat and going on. So thank you everybody for being here. Your spiritual path is very active, I think.
Yeah, to this day. Because if you don't have faith, your spells don't work. And what's a spell? Knowing how to read the written word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't spell, the word's not written. So it's all based in Ogum to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And understanding what those words mean in that particular order, and what they could also mean written in that particular order. I think intention is a huge thing.
Right? You think of hieroglyphs, a whole sentence in one glyph. Same thing with Oriental writing.
Yes.
Arabic writing.
Mm-hmm.
All of these different, even, and I hate this because they've tried to negate the whole Native American way of communication. How is that any different than runes? I mean, so that's another thing that really ticks me off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's I have to say, one of the things that is interesting for me is people push back on that which they do not understand. And I'm curious about that. Is Are people's spirituality so fragile that they're not willing to hear something that is different than what they practice and what they believe?
Well, especially with the hierarchy of any religion, they lose their donations, they got no power over you.
Correct. Correct.
And
Absolutely.
the history of the church and buying indulgences and forgiveness, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you justify everything that you did in the name of God when God has nothing to do with that?
Yes. Yeah, that's and Wisdom Seeker Joan is lurking and listening. Thank you. Heavenly Blessed Honey has arrived. And Angela is having roofers work on her roof so it's loud. So I think
They got her at 6 this morning.
there you go. There you go. So your spiritual path, does it include divination tools? Because my next question is, what divination tools do you use?
A cup and bread. Right? What did they do with that? Hold up a cup of wine and change it into the body and the blood and a piece of bread. So it was already being taught in the church, and that ritual is fine because they went to school for it. But wait a minute, you're teaching it to me every day. How come, the sanctity of all of that? So you make a meal, you've done the same thing. My blessing may not be the sign of the cross.
Right.
Might be, a sigil. However, it does the same thing. The meaning is the same. Who cares what language it's in or what religion it's in? So, yeah, that's where it started. And of course, dowsing rods, they were a whole part of everything. My dad, my grandfather, my grandmother, tie a knot in a string, stick it under a rock. That wart will be gone when the string rots in half.
Okay, so let's pause for a second. Tell us about dowsing rods, just for people who may not know.
Okay, so with dowsing rods, not only you can find water. Mine are copper. You can make them out of old wire hangers, and back in the 50s, copper was what was used for wire hangers. And you can use any kind of stick, but it really works really well when you have sticks that really claim water when you're looking for water. So you can follow ley lines, you can answer questions, you have to talk to them just as you would your pendulum. Will you share with me today? Will you answer questions for me today? Can we ask this question? And they'll tell you the answers. You have to decide whether it's a yes this way or a no this way. And the same thing with these guys. Yes, they're pointing this way. Sorry, here we go again, right?
Okay.
And I get a time frame or two different directions. But when it's no, they just go all over
Yeah.
They don't want to do nothing except, no, we're not talking about it.
So then the dowsing rods are a form of divination that you can use it for very practical purposes, such as finding water and finding lost things. Yes.
And time frames. Because when you get in touch with your rods and they get in touch with you, if you say, is it going to be 3 to 6 months, and they go cattywampus, you can start to narrow it down. And as you narrow it down, like the position that they take, if I saw that, I'd say, okay, somewhere between November, December, and January. Because one is pointing at 1 o'clock and the other one is pointing at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Right? So you use it like you do the face of a clock. And depending on how you phrase your question, whether it's months, days, weeks, even hours. And nowadays you can go online and find all kinds of charts. That you can print off that will help you get your own range and figure it out, and then eventually just have all of that stored in your memory and not have to use that. The first time I took these guys out of the sleeve, I had just moved here to this house, and I'll call myself semi-rural because I'm in the township. And I took them out and asked would they talk to me, and of course they said yes right off the bat. And I said, can you show me where the water is? Well, one pointed to the lake down at the end of the street, and the other one pointed to my well.
There you go.
So that's all I needed to see.
I love that.
Okay, this is the perfect pair for me. So
yes. Judy said, I grew up on a ranch. Grandpa doused to drill a well.
Yep. And you know, a lot of that has to do with your ley lines too. And just so happens the area that I'm in has several that eventually lead to sacred places in Wisconsin and then over Stonehenge. Yeah. Through Lansing, you know. And then I forgot what I was going to say. Squirrel. Okay.
Squirrel. So so you use some dowsing rods, you use pendulums. What other divination tools do you use?
Well, oracle cards, tarot cards, candle magic, thread pulling. That's energy work. Frequency, vibration, fusion work. When I crochet, every stitch is an ohm.
Yes.
You know, I learned that from some of the storybooks that I was read to, that were stories carried over from the old country, that were the stories my grandmother heard, that, and it just goes all back to Stada Baba, or what's her name? The one on the chicken legs. Why can't I think of her name?
Yes. Yes, I have a paint. Yes, I actually have a piece of Baba Yaga.
Thank you. Because that's a babka cake, right?
Yes. So so do you remember your first deck?
My first deck? Yes. Well, it was kind of sitting over my mother's shoulder watching her.
And what was
and nobody else knew that this was going on. This was the moment where my brothers weren't involved, you know?
Okay.
But the other thing is, my grandmother was all about dreams and the Three Wise Men dream book.
Okay.
And she ran the numbers back in the days of the party lines, etc. And she'd be on there and the party line would pick up and she'd go, and my brother and I would be sleeping in the bedroom, right? We'd had a sleepover with Nana and she'd be, I want 1, 5, 6 straight and boxed for a nickel.
There you go.
And a penny. And it would be the whole morning like that. And then the cab driver would come and pick up all of her tallies and wherever he disappeared to. That was before the days of the state lottery, Irish sweepstakes was always going on, but we didn't talk about that.
No.
But it was always dream interpretation that would base her numbers on.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right? So she would take her dream and then she would find the meaning for that in some of the books that she has. And then she would convert that to the Three Wise Men's book so she could get the numbers for it.
I love that.
Right?
I love that. Do you remember the deck that she was using?
The original, the French deck with the wands, that's my mother's deck. And I still have that.
Okay.
And then I have a couple of antique decks that I just don't use because they're too precious. They're too old. They're going to fall apart.
Yeah,
and they have provenance.
So was that a Marseille then? Or was it a
Yes, that's what it is. That Marseille deck.
It was a Marseille. Okay. And so let me ask you this. When did you get your first deck just for you?
The Age of Aquarius came out.
Okay. The Aquarian Tarot?
Yep. And I had a little deck. My mom had given me a little deck of yes.
This is not the one that you have. I have a mini one. Purchase responsibly, know your limits,
Right. Yeah. Well, this one I have the big normal one.
Yep.
Came out in 1977. That's when I got that. But she gave me a little deck, a pocket-sized deck of traditional tarot.
Okay.
Of Rider Waite with the Pamela Coleman Smith characters. And Pamela Coleman Smith is my muse. She loves to read politics, first of all.
Oh, really? Okay.
But
I would imagine that would be true. Yes.
I mean, if you know her history, no doubt.
Yes.
Okay. So, she grew up in the islands with a nanny who was a soothsayer. And so she brought all of that with her. And she always wore a turban. Green was her favorite color. Well, green's my favorite color because it's the color of growth. There isn't a plant out there that doesn't have green at some time or another in its life cycle.
Yes. Yes.
And so, it's the birth of creation. So all of that fell into place. And I collect things. I'm a big antique nut. And one of my things is dolls because dolls have such a story. And I ran across a doll from the islands that was a representation of her from 1938.
Okay.
It looks like her. It's got a turban on the head, but it's dressed all in orange. But, so what? It is definitely her. And so she's my muse.
I love that. And people who've watched my channel, and they I am not necessarily a particular fan of the RWS images, but that's just me. And so I'm glad that she is a muse for you. And I like how she's shown up in multiple ways and she still helps you do.
Yeah.
She does politics for you. By the way, more people have come in.
Wow.
And so right now we have 50 people watching, Diana, just in case people who do not know who you are. This is the amazing Diana, oil painter, Diana Bowles, Wonder Woman, as I refer to her. Links are below, and I am grateful that you all are here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So you seem surprised. I'm not surprised, actually.
Well,
I mean,
it's your
I was
channel. There's always a lot of people watching.
well, but they're watching for you, and you're sharing space, and you're sharing. Okay, so you got the Aquarian Tarot,
Hmm.
which is I do like the Aquarian Tarot. It has a fun little vibe to it.
It does. It
So
does. And it was different. It was part of a movement of, it came out after hair, right?
yes. Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
it made so much sense because I've always been interested in the stars. Since was old enough to lay on the grass at night by myself without my parents, just me and my brother, and count them.
Oh yeah.
You
Is
know,
that is that how you got into astrology? Because I know
yeah,
astrology is one of your divination tools.
yeah. It
So
my parents were very creative people. You know, in spite of his sad childhood story of the 30s, because he was born in 21, and
mhm,
everybody living through the Depression, all of that stuff.
yes.
And it didn't have the resources that we have now just because there was such a lack of communication. Now,
Correct.
this is something else we have to protect, is the old way of communication.
Hmm.
It's AI responsibly or else. So it's all of that as well, right?
Yes. I mean, and I think it is one of those things. Yeah. Annie Bear is agreeing with you. And I do have to put this up because Judy has said it well. Loving Gerald, but here to see you shine.
Oh, Judy, thank you. I'm,
So
I'm very humbled right now. I don't know. That was, I was, thank you, Nana. And my mom taught humility. And
mhm,
because you never know when you're not going to have anything, that was my grandmother's philosophy.
yes. So you're interested in the stars, you're paying attention to those as a child,
Hmm. And my
and
dad
then
would point things out.
you're
Sorry.
so there's a beautiful connection there if I can put this, because you had a lot of the, I would say, maternal line of being of the wise women, the cunning people, and honoring the cycles and the phases. And your father also creative. Thank your father for showing you and pointing and
Yes.
probably asking, answering all of your questions.
Right. And
So
and if you think about it, theirs was a generation who didn't have all of this. Now we've not only gone beyond radio to television, is airplanes, and they're not biplanes, and they're really fighting wars with them because of his
mhm,
experience with the Enola Gay. But he came back from there. He was a cartoonist, and he was a photographer, and
yes,
but never did anything with that because what the war had done to so many people and still
sure,
does to this day. And my
yes,
mother had gone to fashion design school, but you're talking about 1949 for me to be born. So she's married right out of high school. You think that she's ever going to do anything with that fashion design? Not really till later in life. Then she got into home decorating
hmm.
with wallpaper and fabrics and all of that business.
So okay, so I mean, it feels very much like you have the perfect storm.
I exactly, and yeah, don't get me wrong, there were bad days too,
Oh,
as we
I'm not
all do.
discounting that at all, but
Yeah,
I think you understand what I'm saying. You
yeah,
come from a long line of people who are, I'm going to use the term, tuned in or willing to hear and willing to listen.
how about adaptogen?
Oh, say more about that. Adaptogen?
Yeah, I mean, because it was adapt or just like, to me, this is Sedna, right? A
Hmm.
star in the sky. And she is about sacrifice and adaptation. If she had accepted the sacrifice, she would have died. She learned from the sacrifice and adapted to be queen of the ocean. and her fingers and toes became all the critters of the sea.
I love these origin stories and how things work.
Right. And, you know, that story, the Inuits are not the only ones to have told this story. Baba Yaga talks about this story.
Yes, yes.
The fairy tales talk about this story all the time. But when you finally, especially now, to hear it in a culture rather than the traditional Greek Roman cultures.
Yes.
This is helping to bring humanity together again. Because Lord, you need that.
Yes. And Michelle Marie, Astrological Tarot, has joined us. As Tarot Asked Backwards, Jeff is here. And and Annie has said, Gypsy Soul Woman, our Diana. Absolutely. Yeah. Hello, T. Lynn. Well, and I think one of the things, and this is Gerald's opinion, when we honor and we remember the past, when we remember from whence we come, we take those skills into our current day and our future, because things are very different. Because your parents did not have the internet to contend with.
No, they did not. And if you think about it, also, I'm my own grandpa, because who knows, I mean, Akashic record, I know that there's been role of reversal, and you go back to the same time frame and repeat it from a different angle with the same souls involved. Only now one takes on the role as the child and the other takes on the role as the adult.
Yes.
Or a playmate or a cousin,
So you do astrology, you also do Akashic records, to which you do Akashic Adventures with Viviani and Linda de Gonzalez.
Yes.
Regularly on Tuesdays.
Yes.
How did you become aware of that?
Well, it's very difficult to turn it off. It's just always on for me.
Okay, so it's always on for you?
Right. I never had an identification for it. I knew what it was, and it's just always there. For me, it's part of mediumship. It's part of the coppers. It's part of tarot cards, because there's always one of my guides speaking to me at the moment, the appropriate guide, whether it's Elena the Trods, Merlin, Nostradamus, depends on exactly where I'm trying to focus and apply myself.
Sure. Yes.
The Diana gene,
The Diana gene. Everybody's going to want some of that. Well, and it's interesting because I have a similar thing. I know this show isn't about me; it's all about you. No, I will share something that you shared makes sense to me, because I never knew when I was doing divination 25 plus years ago, I was actually accessing Akashic records and having that in life, we get more information, and if we get curious about it and we stay engaged, it helps us to understand more of who we are at a deeper level. So that was an interesting thing that I realized. I was like, holy crap, when I'm doing readings and I'm feeling connected or downloading, whatever you want to call it, it was like, oh, that's Akashic record stuff. And it just becomes a way of understanding and being engaged.
And don't you just love it when your sitter goes, that makes perfect sense, because I've always felt that.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Then you really know that you've locked into their spirit, their soul, their resonance, their life story, their feather book, their whatever you want to call it.
Yes. Oh, and I think, and there is a way to honor all of those and to not discount. Beth shared, that is very cool, Diana. The Hopi people believe the soft spot on the baby's head is a conduit to the other worlds, and when it closes up, the child loses the natural connection.
But the seed has been planted. It's up to you now to work on it and grow it.
I love that. I love that. So yeah. And okay. So we've talked about are there any other divination tools that you want to share, or forms of divination that you use?
Knot tying, you know,
Okay.
like you, with the glimmer globes. This is
Hmm.
setting an intention. I have an altar with a family heirloom, very large statue of Joan of Arc.
Hmm.
And she gets all the troubled cases that I can't, you know, they're going to be ever present in my heart anyway, but I can't give them ever present thought. So she holds that thought and holds the prayer that I can't dedicate to them at that moment. And of course, sometimes a different guide will get it, but the problem children, the ones who really need extra help,
Hmm.
Joan holds it.
Yeah.
She's got a mailbox, and the name goes in there when the final result has come, whether it's crossing over or wishes fulfilled, then it comes out.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Um, okay. So, I mean, we have been talking for 51 minutes, believe it or not, and this has been incredible. And there's so many people watching. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, you know, candle magic is another thing. It's a real thing.
Yep.
Think about the old, we would do a novena in church, right?
Hmm.
It's a 9-day procedure.
Yep.
Yes, you can have different days of it, but it's a 9-day procedure. And how many times does it show up? 369, which is Tesla's code to begin with. And so we have this novena where we work with 8 days of intention and 9 day to close and say thank you and show the gratitude.
Mhm.
And that's witchcraft because that's been going on like forever. The Vesta Virgins, you know, I mean, put all of
Yes.
this together on your own, in your own. It's been going on for centuries. They
Yes.
just changed the language and the acceptance of in order to
Yes.
have a powerful rise of their own.
Yes. And yes, language has been changed, and I'll even say hijacked in order to manipulate. There, I said it. I said it. But I think it's what's really intriguing for me, and again, Diana and I were talking about an upcoming series that'll be on my channel, so you'll see it. Take care, Annie Bear. Thank you for being here.
Huh.
Um, and so part of it is when we peel back the reasons we do things, and curiosity is a big word for me. When we get curious and we just explore, I think it's a beautiful way just to understand the history. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It just is.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like oh my God, there's so many, my brain is thinking, things keep flooding in. It's like interpreting your dreams
Hmm.
and understanding. Yeah, you can go play numbers with that if you want, but it is understanding that where is it? Is it a spaghetti dream? Is it a precognition? And how many times on the dream show has it turned out to match up something that's in someone else's
Yep.
dream
Oh yeah.
or been the precognition? I had one dream which I really didn't spend much time on the show because we were really busy that night. But I had been given these codes, and it was the first time it came up stacked like a brick home, you know, done this with
Hmm.
mortar, and the mortar were lines showing you where the next
Interesting.
message was coming. And this was what was it, July 21st, 22nd? And there were all these K's. This was the first time I was shown symbols left and right
Oh,
from outer
okay.
space, the same things that you see on, you know, spaceship debris, and these symbols, but the letter K kept showing up distinctively, whether it was reversed, whether it was written in Russian, no matter what it was. The news came out a few hours later. Biden steps down and endorses Kamala Harris. Those K's were for her. And
Okay.
it came from one of my evenings of flight in space.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's so powerful. I think it is beautiful. Dreams have a lot of opportunity for us, especially when we engage them and we think about them and we accept them. Sometimes a dream is a dream.
Yep.
Sometimes a dream is a message that's coming through from your higher self, your future self, from a loved one. I think it's a great way to understand that. I am also a big fan. We develop our own dream dictionary and our own dream language,
Yeah.
and honor that. Can it and I'm also a believer that there's so many synchronicities. I mean, pay attention to those people. Pay attention.
Exactly.
So yeah.
I had a precognition. Well, no, I won't call that a precognition. I had a dream, and I was in the water, and I was rescuing souls, and I took them to this big white room. They were all dressed in beige Turkish towel robes, and everybody there was dressed the same way. And I was folding laundry while they were sitting comfortably. I had pulled these souls out of the water with me. And as I'm folding this laundry, Raphael comes in and he says, okay, this group, and he pointed to my group and he says, it's time to go. Well, I had been retrieving souls.
Oh,
okay. And he said, not, and so I went to go with them to guide them. He says, no, this is their final. You stay here. So I went back to folding laundry.
Mm-hmm.
Woke up, and one of my nieces and I have crossovers quite a bit. So she's talking about what she saw. I'm talking about what I saw. Her husband says, you're both crazy. And then he turned on the news, and the Baltimore Bridge had just collapsed and 5 people were killed. And
Wow.
all of the things that I had seen in my dream while I was going down was what the barge looked like. And I'm getting chills. It went with her dream as well, because she had seen the bridge from being on it. I had seen the bridge, and I'm very familiar with that bridge because from where I live, that's the only way over to Delmarva and all the beaches, right?
Correct. Yes. Wow.
So there's so much validity and value in your dreams.
Oh,
Seriously.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And, and I remember hearing stories about people with their kids. They wake up and they talk about, what did you dream about? And they normalized it. So this is a
Yep.
very helpful thing. And I wish more people had that.
Yep. One of the dream authorities, whose name is escaping me right now, his last name is Green. His daughter had a nightmare, and she came into his room. She was 5 years old, 4 years old. And she said, there was a monster in my dream. And he said, so what did you do? I put on my dragon suit. So well, it's how you're brought up, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, and isn't it is it an indigenous populations that say when you have a nightmare that you need to go and find out, you need to face that nightmare and go, what are you trying to tell me?
Yep. I believe that wholeheartedly. I know people who come to me with night terrors, but more than night terrors. They wake up and shit is all over their house. Like somebody was here. I know it. I saw this guy dressed like ninja.
Oh my gosh.
You've got stuff that you've got to deal with. And by the way, you know that this is Potawatomi land that this house is built on. And it was when I went to do the house clearing, it is where Chief Tonquish died in 1850 something, and his son was also killed. And the longhouse that I was in belonged to the shaman who was had the body of the son with him, and Tonquish was already laid out because he was sick and the shaman was trying to take care of him. And so Tonquish turns his head and starts crying, and there's tears streaming down my face. And so when I came out of it, I told the guy all about it. And he said, well, Tonquish Trail is right over there. He lives on Ann Arbor Road, which is just outside of Plymouth, which is one of the Three Fires Confederacy. One of the pots for the Three Fires Confederacy is there somewhere. They just don't know where. But they know it's right in there somewhere. But there's so many houses built on top of it. At the time, nobody cared about that stuff. Now they do. It's too late. You're going to tear down all these, historic homes. You can't do that.
Kaylee shared, my mom didn't remember her dreams for the longest time. She just recently had her third eye cleared, and now she remembers them.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So, Leah, go ahead.
Oh, how far away am I from Plymouth? About an hour and a half south of, not an hour and a half, about an hour south of me.
Okay. What were you going to say?
Squirrel.
Third eye.
Third eye.
Kaylee, her mother, remembering her dreams. It's okay.
It'll come back when we're done.
Yes, of course. Well, your YouTube channel doesn't have a lot of content, yet you are oftentimes with other people.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. Tell everybody where they can usually find you.
On Mondays with Cartomancy Mesquite, 3:30 Eastern. We do use some cards or dowsing rods or pendulum when necessary, but we also do Nancy Jean's Crystal Garden reads.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And just like all divination, when you're together, working on the same thing, it's uncanny how it all syncs up with each other. And then Tuesdays, the Akashic Record, 5:00 Eastern time with Viviani and Linda de Gonzalez. And Tuesday nights, 9:00 Eastern time, Dreams, Apparitions, and Visions with Alice.
Yes.
And Harry and Callie, and sometimes the Bookers join us.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bookers, nobody knows this already, they have been published ghost hunters. So they have, they bring a good something to the table with them as well. And then on Thursdays, approximately every other week, I'm on with Allie and Mark or Joan.
Yes.
With mediumship.
Mm-hmm.
And then Valerie Bradshaw and I, oh my gosh, I'm running this down, right? She and I do astrology, definitely on the moons. Sometimes we come on once a week for a stretch when it's
sure.
Really important that people are clearing the energy, understanding the energy, because you can't do astrology without using your intuition.
It does help. Yes. So we are at an hour, believe it or not. This has been great. I do want to share, and maybe because I want to share a little bit about your deck that you've created.
Oh, sure.
Perhaps I can have you on, and we'll do more of a deck casual about this.
Sure, if you'd like.
And so this is the back of the deck. What do you call this deck?
Clarity. CLAIR-ET. And it comes in a little bag like a tea bag. So reading your own tea leaves.
Yes.
And I also send it with 2 Lemurian Court Point. And since we're sitting here together, let me show you the trick. Now, I magnetized them before they came to you, but this is what you have to do now that they're yours, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start spinning them.
Mm-hmm.
Spin them till your heart's content.
Mm-hmm.
And then you try to push them together, and you can feel like you're going for two South Poles
Uh-huh.
or two
Yep.
North Poles. They will not connect. They want to push apart.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that works with aura, aqua aura really well, and this and fluorite and anything that you can get points with for sure. But
sure.
I really gravitate to these Lemurian because they're,
Of course, yeah.
They're just they're all of our star seed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and then it comes also with 3 pieces of paper. One's a little letter explaining it, and then just little keys, because it's always up to you to interpret what it says. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And I forgot what else I was going to say. Thank you, Leah.
So yeah, and so they're 29 or 28 cards.
28 cards, so you can use them like a grand tableau,
Mm-hmm.
right? And of course, my muse, Pamela Coleman Smith, helped me do all of these. I didn't have numbers planned or anything for them. They fell into place all on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the numbers are visible, some of them are not, but they're there. You just have to look for them. In other words, study the picture. What does it mean for you? How does it answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I've done this like this, I call myself small brewing.
Yes.
And small batch brewing.
Small batch brewing.
Yes. And because I do things in a small batch, it reaches more people by doing it that way. Yes. And believe me, I have probably 200 decks of cards myself. So I always want to call you Stosh because, that's nickname for Stanley.
Yes. Yep. You got it. You got it.
So I did it this way. I drew them all out by hand with a Sharpie point, extra fine. I used my finger for the smudging to get, to get background and get stuff like that. So my fingers were all a mess all the time I was doing this. And I didn't work at it steadily, but I worked over a couple of months to get it together. And then I just ordered 25 decks at a time. And that's all I order is 25 decks at a time.
Sure.
Now, the originals I lost them. They were on display in a case because I do live events, right? And I sometimes take these with me to sell them. And I had them in those box cases, the picture frame, display cases. And I, not thinking, put them in my studio, and the sun shines in on this window, and they sat in the sun, and the glass was not sun treated, right? So they all faded. So I pitched them, but I have one deck from the original printing that is never used, and then this is my trusty read for the public deck.
So purchase responsibly, know your limits. We're here to share, not to sell. People can email you using the email below if they're interested in the deck. So,
well, and that's it. This is why I did it old school, small school, because as beautiful as those are, you don't know which is a real artist, which is AI sometimes, right?
Yes.
And this is all by hand and personal touch, because nobody touches it except the guy at the print shop, and it's a small print shop, and me. And I bless them before they leave the house.
Yes.
With the sigil that Raphael gave me.
I love that. So in this, here's the last thing that I like to do. What brings you joy these days? Everybody take a sip.
Yeah. I think it would be easier to ask me, in the words of Addie McDowell, back in the days when she was doing the Revlon ads, you know what really chips me off? when your dog's dentist says he needs orthodontia wear. You know, I mean, just this, I get so much joy from everything. Even if the glass, I'm a half full kind of gal, you know, the glass is
Yes.
always half full. Even if I've dumped it over and spilled it, it's half full.
Yes.
Because I'll sop it up if I have to and put it back in there.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
There's been so many lessons learned in my life. And this is another part of astrology, is the lessons that come from astrology is sometimes more important than the predictive power of astrology, especially when you look at your part's fortune and where it is in your chart and where it is in the sky. Now it's an Arabic point. So there's like, there's countless points in the sky that, you know, refer to something or another. But that part's fortune is it's your good luck charm. It's the left turn you took by mistake was actually the turn that you needed to make to avoid the accident that was your fate.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And it's being aware, your moment of awareness, and it's like the horrible thing that turns out to be a blessing in disguise.
Correct.
So using that, sometimes you can look back in your life, and that's when you begin to understand what your path is going forward. And where did you learn your most important lessons?
And you have to be willing to look at those situations honestly and hold space and to be kind to yourself when you're doing that. Because sometimes when I look back at the choices I've made, I go, what the what?
Was I really 16 years old and
I did that? Oh my gosh, because I would never do some of that now.
No, even just looking at it now, riding a motorcycle. No, those days are over. They were fun while they were here. The 50 years of healthy riding is plenty. Thank you very much. And even at that, the lesson had to come in getting an old lady injury of not even moving. I was sitting at the apron of my driveway, and it's like the little old man on laughing. The bike is running. I had the wheel cocked. I was getting ready to pull out, and the street was curved. And here comes a woman barreling up the street. I knew she didn't see me. There was no way I was pulling out. Well, the wheels cocked, and you know, the apron of a driveway and the little dip that comes up, boom. So I did this fantastic yoga move to avoid hitting the fire hydrant with my head or my mailbox with my hip, and instead got my foot caught up in the engine and wrenched everything. That was a steady downhill climb after that point. Yeah. So I sold it in 2017 and haven't ridden since. And I'm okay with that because, boy, I had a blast. Yeah. But like I said, there were more rosaries said then than.
And Beth asked, what kind of motorcycle did you have?
Harley Springer Softail.
Did you name the motorcycle?
Yeah, she was Baboing, because she had springs on her triple tree.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
So that was her license plate. B-Boing. Baboing.
Love that. I love that. Well, everybody, thank you for being here. We're going to end this. And as soon as we're done, we're going to figure out when we can get together again and talk about your deck.
You bet. You bet.
So, everybody, again, this is oil painter Diana, Wonder Woman.
Thank you.
Stick around. You will absolutely see her a little bit everywhere. Both Diana and I do offer private readings. Contact information is below. So that's wonderful.
Right.
And so we will say farewell to everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Diana.
Blessings to everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.